New, local, unique. My TV 53 News at 8 starts right now.
You're watching My TV 53 News at 8 with special coverage of the 22 election.
It is election night 2022. Good evening and welcome to the San Joaquin Valley's only 8 p.m. news. I'm Austin Reed. Thank you for joining us. The polls just closed seconds ago, and what a day to vote all across the San Joaquin Valley. All day today, we had rain, thunder, lightning, and even some reported power outages. Here is how it looked just outside our broadcast center in Northwest Fresno around 4:30 today. We will have an update to your forecast coming up later in this broadcast. But we do start with team coverage of today's ever so important November election. Coming up, Sarah Nicole spent the day outside the Fresno County Elections Office where day of voters were streaming in. Kaylee Kwasnick spoke with a Cal Matters reporter who has spent the day covering the races. Marcus Esparza takes a look at who the biggest donors are this year. Brittany Kovacs has an interesting story about selfies while voting. Athena M is taking a look at what celebs are doing today. And later, Michael Wells from Selma News Now will check in to see what's happening in the Selma area today. But we begin with reporter Sarah Nicole, who is in downtown Fresno. Sarah, good evening.
When the weather is bad, then that actually means the social and maybe the psychological costs of going to the polling station goes up, said Yasuko Horachi, a Dartmouth professor of government and a co-author of a 2017 paper showing how weather affects election turnout and choices. Mr. Horachi's paper was one of many that used county-level weather data and voting files to measure the impact of precipitation in elections. The consensus is that 1 inch of rainfall above the normal rain for the day can decrease voter turnout up to 1%, while an inch of snow can decrease turnout by less than 0.5%. Republicans who once embraced voting by mail are now far more likely than Democrats to skip early in-person and mail voting in favor of voting on Election Day at the urging of former President Donald J. Trump. That leaves Republican voters with less flexibility if challenging weather presents itself on Election Day. All right, with me, I have James Coos, the county clerk of the Registrar of Voters. So have you noticed a decrease in turnout for voters due to the inclement weather today and yesterday?
So I have not seen a decrease as of right now. We've seen increases over the previous days. It's been a very positive pattern increase. We couldn't really tell until you get to the end of the day and then compare that against previous elections. Right now, it's looking like a very good turnout, however.
Awesome. Is it typically last day, all the procrastinators like myself who wait till the very last day to vote? Is that you have a pretty high turnout on a regular basis for that?
Yes, we do. And there's a lot of voters who like voting in person.
Reporting for My TV 53, News at 8, I'm Sarah Nicole. Austin, back to you.
All right, Sarah, thank you very much. Now to Kaylee Kwasnick, who is digging deeper with a Cal Matters reporter.
Hi, Austin, and happy Election Day. From the hottest measures like sports betting and abortion to how long the numbers will actually take to be counted, I spoke with Alexei Kosev, one of our partners at Cal Matters. So if you wanted to just go over Proposition 1 first.
So by voting in favor of Proposition 1, you would be adding this right to an abortion, right to contraception into the California Constitution and creating a greater protection for these rights that already exist, but now they would have that additional constitutional bearing.
What about Proposition 26 and 27?
Proposition 26 and 27 both have to do with sports betting. And Proposition 26 would allow sports betting at tribal casinos in California. Proposition 27 would allow online sports betting. So any Californian could bet on sports events from anywhere in the state, from the internet or their phone. And these two propositions are kind of in conflict with each other. They've both spent hundreds of millions of dollars fighting over basically who should have the right to access what could be a very lucrative sports betting market in the biggest state in the country.
I wanted to ask you, we had read that there could possibly be longer count, the results could take longer to count this year. Why would that be?
So the results usually always take a little bit longer to count in California. I wouldn't expect that to be any different this year, but California is a state that votes heavily by mail. In fact, more than 3/4 of all voters vote generally by mail. And so when that happens, there's extra verification steps that have to happen to ensure that the votes are coming from the people who are actually registered to vote, and it can end up taking some additional weeks.
For up-to-the-minute results tonight and over the next few days, visit calmatters.org. I'm Kaylee Kwashnick in the newsroom with MyTV 53 News at 8.
Okay, Kaylee, and new tonight, who are the biggest donors this year? Reporter Marcus Esparza explains.
This list comes from our partners at Cal Matters and the Secretary of State. A total of 76 organizations poured anywhere from $1 million to $103 million. Here are the top 5. Federal Indians of Groton, Rancheria, has contributed a total of $35 million to 9 campaigns. Billionaire Mike Bloomberg has contributed a total of $45 million to support Prop 31, the tobacco ban. Lyft has contributed a total of $48 million to 31 different campaigns. Davida has spent around $53 million to 73 campaigns. But taking the top spot, the San Manuel Band of Mission of Indians, the tribe spent a whopping total of $103 million to 94 different campaigns. 99.3% of that money went to oppose Prop 27, which would allow people to bet sports online. To read the full list of top donors, head to calmatters.org. In the studio, I'm Marcus Esparza with MyTV 53 News.
Thank you, Marcus. New at 8 now. Another place we are covering this election day is Selma, where 8 items were on the ballot today. Michael Wells with Selma News Now continues our team coverage and explains what they are.
Here in Selma, voters decided on a mayor, 2 council members, members of the local healthcare district, members of the Selma Unified School District Board of Trustees, and a local school district bond. Just across the street here from Selma City Hall, hundreds of voters lined up to cast their ballots today at the city's Fire Department Administration Building. It was one of Fresno County's vote centers. Folks here in Selma voted on a mayor, choosing whether to keep current Mayor Scott Robertson or go with one of his challengers, Luis Quintana or Teresa Guzman Salas. In Council District 2, the vote was between incumbent council member John Trujillo and Jose Moreno III. For Council District 3, the choice was between current council member Sarah Guerra and Luis Franco. Voters also chose 2 Selma Unified School District trustees, seats 3 and 4, as well as Measure L, a Selma Unified School District bond measure that will need 55% of the vote to pass. 2 Selma Healthcare District board seats were also up for grabs, seats 1 and 5. When it comes to the mayoral race, if Scott Robertson wins, he will continue as the city's first elected mayor, although in his second term. Reporting in Selma, Michael Wells, Stillwell News for MyTV 53 News at 8.
Well, thanks, Michael. Did you take a selfie while voting today? If you did, is it legal or illegal? Reporter Brittany Kovacs has the answer.
Is it illegal to take a selfie with your ballot when voting? Lucky for you, there are no restrictions regarding taking pictures with your ballot in California, thanks to then Governor Jerry Brown, who signed the AB 1494 back in 2017. As long as you are not being disruptive in the polling office or violating any laws, snap away. States that do not allow ballot selfies are Georgia, Illinois, Massachusetts, Missouri, Nevada, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, and South Carolina. I'm Brittany Kovacs reporting with MyTV 53 News. Back to you, Austin.
Brittany, thank you. It is Tuesday night, and this special election edition of the MyTV 53 News at 8 is just getting started. Up next, Athena M is looking into what the celebs are doing today. Plus, we will take a look at the biggest national issues Americans are debating. Later this week is National Pet Shelter Week, and Valley Animal Center is in the house. And a quick reminder, our newscast is an hour long tonight, full of new content starting again at 8:30. New, local, unique. This is MyTV 53 News at 8. Don't go anywhere.
New, local, unique with Austin Reed. You're watching MyTV 53 News at 8.
MyTV 53 News coverage of the 22 election continues right now.
Hey, welcome back. The balance of power in the U.S. Congress is at stake tonight as voters head to the polls to decide whether Democrats will continue to hold the majority in the Senate and House, either delivering a boost for Joe Biden's presidency or shifting power to Republicans. From our news partners over at Voice of America, congressional correspondent Katherine Gibson reports from one of the key places in election 2022. That's the southern state of Georgia.
Open the border.
From Pennsylvania to Ohio, Nevada to New Hampshire, candidates making the final push in campaigns that will decide the direction of the United States for the next 2 years. And in the key state of Georgia, the day beginning with a prayer.
This election season, Lord, I pray.
And a warning from Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker.
We got to get it right, because if we don't get it right, we won't recognize this country tomorrow.
Walker's supporters frustrated with President Joe Biden.
After all what Democrats have done, I just can't sit back and allow the country to just fall behind. The border crisis is out of control, and it doesn't appear that Joe Biden's going to do anything about it.
In a recent Pew Research Center poll, more than 3/4 of U.S. voters surveyed said the economy was their top concern this election.
The housing market, the price of gas, you're noticing in the grocery stores, food is very, very expensive, and there's items that you can't even find anymore.
Because democracy itself is on the ballot. We got to show up tomorrow.
Walker's opponent, Senator Raphael Warnock, won a runoff election in January 2021 that gave Democrats control of the U.S. Senate and the ability to enact Biden's agenda.
The economy is the number one issue for me, and I think that the Democratic Party and Senator Warnock in particular really kind of focus on the everyday issues of everyday Americans. The Republicans like to talk about the stock market and everything.
And after the U.S. Supreme Court decision in June ending the federal right to abortion, social issues have also motivated female and independent voters to vote for Democrats.
That's very concerning to me. I think everybody should have access to health care, whether what your personal views are on Roe v. Wade or abortion.
What size you need, baby?
Voters here in Georgia are key in deciding control of the U.S. Senate, with just a handful of races nationwide that are still too close to call, but that will determine which party holds a narrow majority. All 435 U.S. House seats are also up for re-election, with most polls showing Republicans will take control. Katherine Gibson, VOA News, Macon, Georgia.
Let's talk about today's crazy weather real quick. I actually filmed this beautiful rainbow today outside the MyTV 53 Broadcast Center in Northwest Fresno. But check out some pictures from the City of Fresno's Facebook page. City crews spent most of the morning and afternoon responding to storm-related calls, including this broken tree right near Palm and Yale earlier today. Now, if you see storm-related damage, make sure you call the city property line. That's 311. In the meantime, the City of Bakersfield's Facebook page posted this helpful reminder earlier this afternoon. So for blocked storm drains, call 661-326-3111. For downed trees or branches, that number is 661-326-3866. Street light and traffic signal outages can be reported by calling 661-326-3781. But there is also an after-hours emergency line. That number, 661-327-7111. Coming up at 8:30 tonight, MyTV 53 News will have a brand new second half hour full of new political content. Coming up, Sarah Nicole goes one-on-one with a candidate for Congress. Also ahead, chief political reporter David Taub from GV Wire goes over some of the local races he has been covering since day one. Later, political consultant Matt Klink is back with us tonight on his take on this year's election all across the Golden State.
MyTV 53 News continues with the Valley's local forecast.
Now let's take a quick break from politics. This week is National Pet Shelter Week, and reporter Brittany Kovacs is with Valley Animal Center.
Thanks, Austin. I'm here with Ruben and Rico, and we're here with the Valley Animal Center. How are you today?
Good, busy, but good.
Nice. Well, I was talking to you a little bit earlier, but tell us about the Valley Animal Center.
Yeah, so Valley Animal Center is one of the largest no-kill animal shelters here in the Central Valley and most of California, considering. We see, on average, about 1,000 animals a year, and we have a very good success rate at getting those guys adopted out. We've been a facility and an operation for a little over 25 years now, and that actually originally started with just cats. But through the donations, the growth of our community, and the need for animal rescue in general, we've grown to now being a cat shelter, a dog shelter. We have a low-cost clinic for our community. We even have a membership-based dog park for those who meet our criteria to have their dogs have an access to a yard that they may not have at home. And we have several different ways that we invite our community to come down, celebrate with us, and help us, raise money for these guys here.
Nice. And you said, so you're the adoptive, what was your title?
My full title is the Animal Care Adoption Supervisor, but yeah, my main duties involve the adoption process itself and the intake of the good majority of the animals that come through our care.
Okay. Is there like a specific process?
Yeah, so for anybody for the most part, a big percentage of our animals come from animal control. So we go to animal control facilities, and that doesn't mean locally to Fresno. We help Kerman, Parlier. We've gone all the way to Las Vegas for animal transfers. We try and spread our reach as far as we can to help, spread the message of what we do. But that's where I'd say about 80% of our animals come from. And then the other portion of that are owner surrenders. So for anybody out there that is in need of assistance with their pet because of, X, Y, Z and reasons, we do have a form that they could submit on our website that will essentially help us answer a lot of questions that we need to answer to see if we could rightfully help that animal.
Okay, cool. That's awesome that you guys do all of that. What is the website?
It's valleyanimal.org. So it's our name where we're Valley Animal Center. It's just valleyanimal.org.
Okay. And then you said you were celebrating something this week.
Yeah, so this week is Shelter Staff Appreciation Week. And so for anybody, and for one, the shelter staff at our facility goes above and beyond in what they do. But for all the shelter staff that's out there in the nation, not just California, not just Fresno, all over the nation, it's the week that we celebrate that staff. And I was a shelter staff for a long time before I took over my position. And shelter staff is responsible for the cleaning, the caretaking, the feeding, the nurturing of all the animals that are in their center. And, I could speak from experience. A lot of your days start, with a fresh pair of clothes that maybe gets, a little soiled right away. Or a lot of days you're staying late because maybe somebody left a little bottle baby up at your gate. And, we're going to take all hands on deck and get that kitten or that dog taken care of. And so for all the shelter staff that's out there in the nation, we appreciate you all. And specifically for the staff over at Valley Animal Center, we could not do it without the shelter staff. They're a huge part of what we do there. And your help is so appreciated.
Nice. Well, was there anything else you wanted to share?
At the end of this month, we have Giving Tuesday. It is one of the biggest days in the nation for donating to non-for-profit rescues, just like Valley Animal Center. We don't get assistance from the city, the state. We run off of our services and the donations of our community. And for a long time, those donations have really helped us strive in what we do. But times are hard for everybody. So, with a good push on Giving Tuesday, we hope to keep doing what we do and help saving more lives.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Ruben, for coming and speaking about the Valley Animal Center. I'm Brittany Kovacs, MyTV53 News.
All right, Brittany, thank you. Next at 8, Athena M takes a look at what the celebs are doing on this election day. Plus, we have a very special birthday shout out. Don't go anywhere. All right, welcome back. What are the celebs doing for Election Day? Athena M is here with that story.
You could check out celebrities voting. It's funny because I don't mind celebrities posting and putting stickers that they voted. It's when they get really political.
I agree.
Like when they're at the Oscars and these awards and they stand up and say crazy things. That's a little weird, but at least they're voting and they're proud.
Right.
You cannot complain if you don't vote.
Yeah. All right, Athena, thank you very much. Finally, here on the news at 8, our 8 o'clock half hour, we've got a birthday shout out. Happy birthday to Layla. She turned 17 years old today. Here's a fun fact. Layla is the daughter of our wonderful owners here at MyTV53, Josh and Roxanne Castro. And Roxanne was telling me earlier that Layla loves the rain, so she got another birthday surprise. How perfect is that? Happy 17 years of an amazing life thus far to Layla. Hey, let's get a quick look at your weather. We are going to be calming down as the week goes on. Do expect, though, some more moisture tonight into the overnight hours. Temperatures still very cool. Don't go anywhere. The news at 8:30, a brand new half hour of new political content starts in just a few seconds.
From MyTV53 News, this is Election 2022 continuing coverage.
And welcome back to this special hour-long edition of the MyTV53 News at 8. It's now 8:30 and I'm Austin Reed. This half hour, we are devoting our time to get to know some of the issues and candidates a little better. Here's what's coming up. Sarah Nicole goes one-on-one with a candidate for Congress. Also ahead, chief political reporter David Topp from GB Wire goes over some of the local races he's been covering since day one. Later, political consultant Matt Klink is back with us tonight on his take on this year's election all across the Golden State. And just before we say goodnight, Elon Musk announces his support for one political party. But first, let's toss it to reporter Sarah Nicole.
Well, Austin, our 2022 election coverage continues, and today in the studio with me, I have Michael Mayer. And if you want to give us a little bit of who you are and what you're running for.
Absolutely. So I'm a candidate for U.S. Congress in the 21st District. That's Fresno County and Tulare County. I'm a Valley native. I grew up here. Also a military veteran, a former FBI special agent. Educated here in Fresno and Tulare, as well as Oxford University in England, and a senior executive fellow at Harvard Kennedy School in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Wow. That is some pretty impressive qualifications. So how do you feel that your Navy and law enforcement background would help you in the Valley?
Well, so my background in the military, in the Navy, I did nuclear power production. And one of the great things I like to talk about on nuclear power, every single aircraft carrier in the U.S. Navy has 2 nuclear reactors on it. And so we produce power, and we also do desalination to provide water for operations, as well as humanitarian missions. So those are 2 major things that are going on here in California. How do we keep energy abundant? And right now, Gavin Newsom just extended Diablo Power Plant just because of the energy crisis in California. So that's nuclear power right there. It's clean, it's carbon neutral, so it's environmentally probably the most sustainable energy. And then also for desalination, that's a whole way that we can produce water for our starved valley. And so that's providing water for Southern California, San Francisco, and also making up the water that's needed for our farmers.
Okay. So Michael and I were talking off air, and so this is actually your first run into politics. So what kind of gave you the push to take that? I mean, because that's a huge undertaking, and for Congress. So what drove that?
So one of the things that drove me to run for office actually was some business owners here in the Central Valley, as well as some farmers. They had asked me to run for office a few years ago, and I set the criteria. Between my service in the military, I did construction here, and then for federal law enforcement, I really focused on my business, and I thought I had done service already for the country. So when that was asked, I said, the only way I'd ever do this is if Devin Nunes resigns, and where I live in Kingsburg Central, the district, and that's never happening. And 2 years later, that happened, and I truly believe God opened up an opportunity, and so I'm doing it for the people and for our nation.
That's amazing. I always find it fascinating when people get into something that's so vastly different than what their background is in. So what are your ideas and thoughts for how to help fight the inflation, the rising costs, and homelessness across the U.S., but more specifically in the Central Valley?
Absolutely. So we talked about my background and expertise in energy production. One of the things that we can immediately address, the Inflation Reduction Act that is passed out. You can either print more money and do a bunch of federal spending, which actually just increases inflation, or we can actually provide incentives to business. So if we're able to provide abundant, clean, sustainable power for the state and reduce the energy bills for every person in the valley, in the state, and across the nation, that's an economic stimulus right out the gate. Think about it in the summertime. How much is your home heating or cooling bills? Think of the cold storage facilities for our fresh produce. If that was a 80th percent decrease, all that money goes back into our valley. That absolutely will lower inflation, and it's going to increase more investment here in the valley. That's one thing. And then you mentioned the homelessness crisis. So my background is a special agent with the FBI. I did national security work, but also did traditional law enforcement activities. And then also we have homelessness issues rising in drugs, a lot of veterans that need mental health awareness. So there's a lot of great nonprofits and groups already here in our valley, and I want to come alongside of them, encourage them, as well as make sure that we have the resources to make sure that we get the people the drug help that they need, as well as our law enforcement to be able to tackle those things.
That's amazing. Those are good points. So what stands out most between you and your opponent? What do you feel?
Off the surface, people would say our age. He's been in political elected office longer than I've been alive, and I'm 40 in a few months. He spent the last 44 years as an elected politician. So right out of college, immediately into politics. I left right after September 11th. On November 16th, I enlisted in the military. So I served in the military. I ran engineering construction, did business, federal law enforcement. I own my own business. My wife's family's been an ag. Husband, father of 2 boys. And those are some major differences. He's no roots have been planted for him. Yeah. There's no generation behind. And it's just a different choice. And I feel it's a different generation of politics. We've seen so many elected people who have spent their entire life in politics and don't really understand what it is, the day-to-day struggles that we actually face here in the Valley as a husband, as a father, with school-age issues, to just the typical things that all of us face here in the Valley.
So do you feel like that kind of gives you a bit of an edge over him in the race?
I think it does. I think it makes me, I understand the issues that are going on. I suffer from them. My wife's family and farming. I mean, water, these are serious issues. I know he says that he's a farmer, but he's an elected politician, and he has people who manage and farm his land. And it's not a knock against him. That's just the way it used to be. There's a lot of people who just professional career politicians. Yeah. And so as a business owner, having to sign the front of a paycheck and understand, sometimes we go without to make sure our employees get paid. And it's very hard right now to do business in California because of the regulations and the burdens. And talk about grocery prices and gas prices. All of these things are just, they're unbearable.
Do you have any proposed solutions for the water crisis in California?
Absolutely. So I think the water crisis is an issue that I've known for my entire life, pretty much here in California. And why are not these simple solutions being implemented? That's the thing that really frustrates me. So after I left the military, I ran and did engineering and construction here throughout the Central Valley. So I built wastewater plants and water treatment facilities and packaging facilities. And what we have is not just a simple solution for one thing. There's multiple issues here. One is, how are we dealing with all of the wastewater that's getting dumped into the effluent and that environmental catastrophe? Proper management of our forest. How are we dealing with our forest because the pollution that goes in every time there's a fire? How are we dealing with recharging our groundwater?
It was such a pleasure having you. So thank you for coming on. So I'm Sarah Nicole reporting with MyTV 53 News at 8. Austin, back to you.
All right, Sarah, thank you. Still ahead, David Todd from GV Wire joins me. This is special coverage of the 22 election, only on MyTV 53 News at 8:30. Do stay with us.
MyTV 53 News coverage of the 22 election continues right now.
I'm here now with David Topp, political reporter and chief investigative reporter with GB Wire, among some other titles. David, welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Austin.
All right, so you have been working harder than normal, and it's all because of the 22 election.
Well, it's political season, which is just about over. I mean, it's all done except for the counting.
Right. What are some of the biggest things that we're going to see tonight?
Most of the local races, at least for the city of Fresno, have already been decided. The city council was decided last June, so not much excitement going on at Fresno City Hall. We'll find out tonight. Clovis city elections, the city council. 3 people will be elected. Only one incumbent was running. So we're guaranteed to have at least 2 new members of the Clovis City Council, only because the other 2 incumbents decided not to run this year. And of course, we have the congressional delegation of all 435 members nationwide, but a lot of the close races are here in the Central Valley. So we'll find out, will David Valadao, the Republican who voted to impeach Donald Trump last year, will he be reelected? And also in an open seat, of course, open seats are always pretty rare. Will it be John Duarte, the Republican farmer, or Adam Gray, the Democrat assemblyman who's trying to move up? And Gray, one of the more conservative Democrats, so we'll see if that pays off. And of course, I think one very interesting assembly race for the state legislature, Democrat Esmeralda Soria. She's a Fresno City Councilwoman. She is termed out, and she is facing Mark Pazin, the former sheriff of Merced County.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the school board races. We have a lot of candidates running this year.
I think so. I think the most well-known, or at least well-publicized races for Fresno Unified were Terry Sladek.
Yep.
I don't want to say embattled, but the school board member who draws the most attention because of his politics, because of his behavior. He drew 3 other challengers. The most well-known is Susan Wittrup. She's an educator, and she's most well-funded. And as a side note, she's funded mostly by Granville Homes and Darius Assemi, my publisher.
Sure.
But, Terry Sladek's always been an easy target because of the way he's behaved the last 4 years. But is that enough where people in that area like it? We'll find out.
Yeah. What about, we've got the measures, obviously, statewide measures. Any surprises that you see happening with those?
I think Measure 30, or Proposition 30 statewide, about raising taxes on the rich for electric vehicle environmental issues, because you've seen the Democrats for it, but Governor Gavin Newsom against it. So it kind of has that interesting dynamic. But the other ones doesn't seem like it would be that dramatic. Prop 1, that would enshrine abortion rights in the state constitution, seems like it's an easy pass. The 2 measures that are propositions that are related to gambling, 26 and 27, have had bad polling for a while now. So if either of those pass, that'd be a surprise. And the rest, I don't think we're going to have to see too many surprises. Locally, we got measures C, M, and V. C is the transportation tax. It has gotten a lot of crossover support in opposition. You have Democrats and Republicans both supporting it, and Democrats and Republicans against it. And a lot of money has been spent on this one, but it needs 2/3 to pass. And with all that negative attention that's been received and the negative advertisements, I don't know if it's going to get that 2/3. M is just for a city of Fresno only. That goes to the veterans programs and facilities. That also needs 2/3. People like veterans, but really like them at 2/3. We'll see. And Measure E, which will be a county tax, but going to Fresno State. And that only needs a simple majority to pass. And, because of that, that has an easier path to pass.
Could we talk a little bit about Kern County? Anything you guys are watching down there?
Just the assembly race, I think this got mostly my interest with Letitia Perez and Baines there. Two Democrats, both of them, a little bit different views, progressive, conservative, at least in the Democratic realm. But either way, Democrats will occupy that seat. Yeah, it was mostly occupied by Ruby Salas, of course, is running against Valadeo for Congress.
Right. Okay, so for the rest of the week, what is your plan now? Just kind of covering what's going to happen now?
Well, the idea that you're going to know winners by the end of election night, not going to happen anymore. We're not going to, for these congressional races, at least for Valadeo, Salas, where it's already predicted that's going to be very close anyway. We're not going to know for weeks. Probably the more localized measure, city council, some of the county and city measures, probably have a better idea in a couple hours.
The governor's race, that's right. I mean, it's
not a race.
Not even a race. Yeah. Are you surprised that Dolly was able to raise enough money and try to get in?
I don't think he raised enough money. Obviously not.
Yeah, not enough money. He raised a little bit.
Well, the question is, will he break 40%?
No. Most likely not. Now, people can follow you on Twitter.
I'm at TalbGVWire. Go to GVWire.com or on Twitter or on Facebook. That's where you find our coverage for tonight and through mostly any political story locally you want or education story you want. GVWire is your place to go.
And I got to say, David Taub is one of the best political reporters in all of California. You got to follow him.
Oh, thanks so much.
Thank you, buddy. Good luck tonight. Right. I'm Austin Reed. This is My TV 53 News, and the 2022 election coverage continues next.
This is a special edition of My TV 53 News.
Welcome back, everybody. Last night, reporter Brittany Kovacs spoke with political consultant Matt Klink via Zoom for his take on this general election. Here is part 2 of that interview now.
I'm here with Matt Klink. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know you're pretty busy. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and yeah, we would love to hear about that.
So I'm a political consultant. I've been practicing professionally for more than 30 years. Most of my adult life has been spent working in California politics. Lately, it's been mostly issue-based campaigns, propositions, but I've worked on political campaigns for people from all the way from President of the United States down to local city council. So I have a good time doing what I do, and I love doing it in California.
And then what are the biggest races that you are tracking personally?
Well, I mean, look, I think that overall, everybody wants to know the top of the ticket. So, and in California, that means that, when you have the governor and the lieutenant governor and the U.S. Senate, Alex Padilla, running for re-election, those races are going to be called at 8:01 p.m. There will be no surprise there. The race that I'm really interested in is the controller, an office that most people haven't heard of. But it's a pretty big race. The Republicans have a great candidate, a gentleman by the name of Lanhee Chen, super smart, works at the Hoover Institute at Stanford. He ran a fantastic campaign. He's really qualified. Now, the challenge is he's running against a woman named Malia Cohen. She was audited for failure to pay taxes, which if you're, the bookkeeper for the state, it's probably not a good thing to have come out. But she has the magic D behind her name. And in a state like California, where Democrats outnumber Republicans 2-1 almost, it's a big problem. So we'll see if quality of candidate or party registration or party title is more important. I suspect that this one will be closer than the other statewide offices, but that magic D behind Malia Cohen's name will be enough to pull her through. That's what I'm really watching. There are some local races in California, obviously the LA mayor's race, but I think that the Central Valley has some of the most exciting congressional races in the state. It won't impact which party controls Congress, because the Republicans are going to control Congress after November 8th, but it will impact the blueness of the California congressional delegation, which will be the nation's largest, or continue to be in 2023.
Wow. Okay. So going off of that, were those included in some of your biggest races for all of California? Or what would you say is the biggest race for all of California?
Oh, gosh. You know what? The state that we say, the nation state of California. I mean, California is larger than other countries with almost 40 million residents. So aside from those three races that I talked about, I mean, you look at Los Angeles County, there is one Republican who represents Los Angeles County in Congress, and the rest are all Democrats. And it's a former Navy fighter pilot named Mike Garcia. He is running in a race that almost touches Kern County. He's running in a race against Christy Smith. It's Christy Smith's third time running for this seat. She's lost twice previously, although in 2022, to be fair, she lost by a grand total of 333 votes. I would not be surprised if Mike Garcia were reelected. But again, this is one of those races that's going to go late into the night on November the 8th. It may even spread into November 9th or 10th until all the votes are counted.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. Those are all the questions I had for you. I'm Brittany Kovacs reporting for MyTV53 News. Thank you so much.
All right, coming up next, billionaire Elon Musk shares his views about one specific political party. That story is next. You're watching MyTV53 News at 8:30 with special coverage of the 2022 election. Hey, finally tonight, Elon Musk, Twitter's new owner, urged Americans to elect a Republican Congress in U.S. midterms to counterbalance President Joe Biden's Democrats. Carrie Scarlett from our news partners over at France 24 USA sheds more light on this story right now.
It's the first time the head of a social media platform has explicitly endorsed a U.S. political party. One day before midterm elections, Elon Musk sent a tweet to his 114 million followers, encouraging people to vote Republican.
To independent-minded voters, shared power curbs the worst excesses of both parties. Therefore, I recommend voting for a Republican Congress, given that the presidency is Democratic.
The world's richest person has been a vocal critic of the Biden administration and Democrats for their proposals to tax billionaires and give more tax incentives to union-made electric vehicles. Musk's auto company Tesla doesn't have unions at its American factories. In April, Musk said he believed Twitter must be politically neutral to merit public trust, continuing by saying that meant upsetting the far right and the far left equally.
And you can watch France 24 24/7, 365 on digital channel 33.6 in Fresno. All right, everybody, that's going to do it for this special hour-long edition of the MyTV53 News at 8 on this November the 8th, the 22 election. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to have full results as the polls are now closed all across the country. I'm Austin Reed, hoping your news is good news. We'll see you tomorrow.
This has been continuing coverage of Election 2022 from MyTV53 News.